Hello everyone, and welcome to Lex's English Club. I'm Alexandra, your guide to mastering the English language with exam strategies, learning techniques, and other valuable tips. Today we're diving into the writing section of the CAE exam. To be more specific, we'll be talking about the writing criteria that examiners use to assess your writing. This will help you understand what examiners are looking for in your writing in general and in your CAE essay in particular. To make things even clearer, we'll be looking at one of my students' essays and try to determine its strengths and the areas for improvement. As you know, examiners assess your writing according to the four main criteria: content, communicative achievement, organization, and language. Each criteria is assessed on a scale from 0 to 5, which means that for one piece of writing, you can get a maximum of 20 points. In my experience, many students and even some teachers find the descriptions for the criteria quite complicated and confusing. And it's understandable, because if you are not familiar with the terminology, it is quite complicated. That's why in this video, I'm going to break down the four criteria for you and simplify them. So, are you ready to know more about them? Let's get started. Number 1 is content. This is how well you fulfill the task. In other words, if you've done what you've been asked to do. Imagine you're writing down a recipe for a friend. Your task is to put down all the ingredients and all the instructions right. Otherwise, your friend won't be able to cook the dish well. The same goes for the CAE writing. For example, in the CAE essay, you have to choose only 2 points that you want to discuss and choose one of them which is more effective. The next one is communicative achievement. This is about how appropriate the writing is for the task and how appropriate the register is. In other words, if the level of formality is right for the task, whether it's formal, neutral, or informal. For example, if you have to write a letter for a colleague, you will have to be more neutral, not that formal. But if you're writing a report, you should be formal. The next one is organization. It's about the way the candidate puts the pieces of writing together. In other words, if it's logical and ordered. Imagine you are telling the story. You start with an introduction, then you develop your story, and then you conclude it, right? The same goes for writing. In your essay, you start with an introduction, when you develop your 2 main points in the main part, and then you wrap things up in the conclusion. You should also use different cohesive devices and linking words to make the text flow. And the last criterion is language. It's all about vocabulary and grammar. And here you need to choose your words and grammar structures wisely, depending on the task. The variety in your writing shows your skill. For example, to write a good essay, you need a wide range of vocabulary to express your ideas clearly and accurate grammar so as not to confuse your reader. To make your writing stronger, you need to use a variety of language and grammar structures like inversion, cleft sentences, and conditionals. Now that we've outlined the marking criteria, we're going to look at one of my students' essays and determine what's been done right and what can be improved. Now let's see how these criteria play out in a real CAE essay written by one of my students. I'd like to remind you that I'm not an exam assessor, I'm just a qualified teacher with wide experience in preparing for the CAE exam. Okay, grab your pen and paper and get ready to learn. Here is a CAE task. Don't forget to pause the video to read it. Okay then, what does the candidate have to do? The candidate has to write an essay discussing 2 of the 3 methods of preparing for a language exam and explain which one is more effective by giving arguments for and against each option. Now let's read a sample essay. Please pause the video and take a moment to read the essay in its original form. It has not been revised and includes some mistakes and errors. The first criterion is content. Let's see whether the student has done what she's been asked to do. To remind you of the task, the student had to choose 2 ways of how to prepare for a language exam and discuss which one is more effective. Strong points. The essay directly addresses the prompt by comparing self-study and one-to-one tuition. The candidate believes that one-to-one classes are more efficient, which is clear. At first glance, it seems that the candidate has fulfilled the task. But let's dig a bit deeper. Do you remember that the task is to discuss two methods of preparing for a language exam? And I'd like to underline it. However, the candidate doesn't mention this fact at all, which already makes the essay look generic. What's more, let's have a closer look at the arguments given for individual classes. For example, the candidate states that personalized classes allow for teachers working thoroughly on students' struggles. Alright, but what specific struggles are these? How does the teacher address them? It's a language exam. That means that there might be specific language struggles, like grammatical inaccuracies, difficulties with vocabulary, or struggles with speaking or writing. Similarly, the claim about self-study lacking control and requiring self-discipline is too general. The argument that it's not popular with students is weak and unconvincing. What's more, the conclusion is simply a restatement of the introduction without offering any insightful final thoughts why individual classes are more effective. Let's move on to the next criterion, communicative achievement, which is closely connected with content. This criterion is not only about appropriate tone and level of formality, but it also shows your ability to deliver the message to the target reader well. In other words, a person who is reading your essay should clearly see why you prefer one option over the other. This is the reason why your arguments should be logical and specific. What about the strong points in this essay? Well, the purpose of this essay is understandable. The overall message is clear, even if the arguments supporting it aren't strong enough. But what should be improved? When we were discussing content, I've already explained why the arguments are generic and lack clarity, and what could be done to improve them. If you leave the arguments like that, the target reader will not be fully informed or convinced why one method is sufficiently better than the other one. As for the tone and register, in some parts the tone is slightly informal because of personalization, for example, from my perspective. A more formal and objective tone is needed for an advanced level essay. Now for organization. Is the text well organized? Is it coherent and logical? Does the writer use cohesive devices and organizational patterns to make it flow? Well, the essay has a basic structure: introduction, body paragraphs, one for each method, and a conclusion. That's done well. However, the essay could benefit from a more variation in linking words and phrases to create a more dynamic flow, using conversely instead of in contrast, or essentially instead of in other words, might show a variety of language and improve the flow. Now let's analyze the vocabulary and grammar. Well, the grammar in the essay is mostly correct. The candidate uses some good vocabulary, including phrases like personalized approach, guided preparation, and boosting their motivation. As for grammatical structures, the candidate uses a relative clause, which is bound to result in faster progress, and participial phrases like having detailed attention to students' goals. However, this is not enough for an advanced essay. The essay needs to be precise. It needs to have more precise language, sophisticated vocabulary, and more varied sentence structures to demonstrate advanced level proficiency. What's more, the essay would benefit from careful proofreading to eliminate minor grammatical errors, slips, and repetition. You can see them highlighted in red. Some collocations are a bit bland. For example, working method could be changed into effective or reliable. The phrases "in other words" and "on the other hand" are often overused. It's good to try and find other ways to introduce ideas. The phrase "in the light of the above" is a bit vague. Instead, the candidate could try "therefore," "consequently," or "based on these observations." Overall, the candidate has fulfilled the task by discussing 2 points and choosing the most effective one, as well as organizing the essay well. However, it could benefit from more detail, smoother transitions, and refinement of language to enhance clarity and meet the standards of the CAE exam. And that concludes our deep dive into the CAE marking criteria. I hope you found this lesson useful. Do you want to know more about how to plan a CAE essay? Make sure you check one of my videos. I'll leave a link down below. If you're looking for personalized support, please feel free to contact me for teaching services or if you want me to check your CAE essay and give feedback. I'll leave my contact details below in the description box. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more useful content and share this video with someone who might benefit from it too. Good luck with your studies!